Hi, welcome to the Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks about the very controversial and hugely popular Netflix series Making a Murderer, which tells the story of Steven Avery and the supposed crimes that he committed. For what it's worth, I watched the documentary series not long after it was made available on Netflix. And with any of these type of things, I like to read a bit more widely about the case, because often you find there's a particular slant, and I don't think the filmmakers were trying to hide that they had a particular bias in one direction, but often that can have an impact on how many of the facts that we do actually end up with. And there are, I think, a couple other important details, and when you consider the case in its entirety, I think it's probably fair to say that Steven Avery, he seems guilty of having committed this crime. There's enough basic evidence there and other things to indicate that is the case. However, I don't know for certain, and maybe I've read that wrong, and he could be totally innocent. However, I think what is really interesting for me about Making a Murderer was the way in which it explored the issue of how justice and the justice system works in America, and really how those who perhaps have less financial capital and less social capital really are at a huge disadvantage. And it just seemed very clear to me that the way that this trial was conducted, and there are some very clear, regardless of Steven Avery's guilt or innocence, I think there are some very clear breaches of natural justice and his natural justice rights. And I think it's very clear to anyone, even those who are objective, who think he's guilty, that his trial was conducted in a way that I don't think any of us would ever appreciate being on the end of, that his trial really wasn't conducted in the way that we would expect a fair, unbiased, and a just trial to actually unfold and take place. I think where the biggest questions lie for me really are with his nephew, Brendan Darcy, or Darcy, I guess, depending on how you pronounce that. But I think I would have serious questions about the reliability of his conviction. There are so many reasons. When you watch Making a Murderer, I think really the nephew, Brendan Darcy, I think should have been for the bulk of the documentary. I think he really should have been the main focus rather than Steven Avery. Steven Avery obviously is who they're focusing on, but really the miscarriage of justice, I think, that took place in Brendan Darcy's case is, look, you've actually got to watch the documentary to understand it. I'm not overhyping this. This is not simply a he said, she said type scenario. They've actually produced in the documentary filmed footage of incidents that I think will leave you, if you are a person who cares about natural justice, extremely concerned about the way that his trial was handled and the way that he was treated during that process. He's a guy who clearly has a very simple mind and might well be on the spectrum somewhere based on how he comes across in this documentary. Yet the way his supposed confession was extracted, the way there was collusion between his supposed defense lawyer and the prosecution in his trial, and there's footage to corroborate all of the stuff, and some of the footage that you watch of the way he was treated by officials, it's very, very alarming, and I would suggest it raises serious doubts about the reliability, and on top of when you factor in all the other, the way that they constructed the case against Steven Avery and then effectively claimed a different version of events to convict his nephew as being a conspirator or co-conspirator or being complicit in this crime as well. But the interesting thing, as I said, for me really about this documentary is the way that it highlights how the justice system actually works, the powerful and I think dangerously so tool that the media has become in public trials like this, and how you can, particularly in America it seems, I don't know if it's the same in other countries, but the prosecution, the Crown, the government, the state seem to be able to use the media effectively as a tool to prosecute a person who's on trial, and that really is unjust and unfair, and there's some very glaring instances of that that unfold during this documentary. I highly recommend the documentary. It's well worth a watch, but I would also say that you should definitely read a bit wider around the case, and there's several really good articles now that do give a bit more background information. As I said, the interesting point though really that comes out of this for me is, is it time to start asking questions about how effective our justice system is for those who are impoverished, those who don't have the financial capital or the social capital to be able to advocate well for themselves or navigate that system in a particularly safe and just sort of way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.